the mystery that shouldn't exist. Imagine striking gold, but instead of prosperity, it brings a curse. What if the very resource meant to be a blessing transforms nation into economic battlegrounds and social quagmires? This isn't fiction, it's the shocking reality for countries drowning in the black gold that was supposed to make them rich. Imagine a resource so valuable that every government fight for it. A liquid so profitable that global powers have overthrown leaders, redrawn borders, and staged wars just to control it. A resource so powerful that it transformed deserts into glittering megacities, yet destroyed entire economies, toppled regimes, fueled decades-long insurgencies, and trapped millions in poverty. A resource that should have made nations rich, but instead cursed them. But here's the real mystery. Why do the countries with the most oil often end up the poorest, most unstable, and most corrupt? And if oil is such a blessing, why does it behave like a poison? Today we're going to uncover the shocking story behind the resource curse, the hidden economic trap that has drowned entire nations in their own black gold. This isn't the tale you think you know, because beneath the surface of pipelines and petrodollars lies a pattern so consistent, so predictable, so devastating, that it almost feels intentional. Setting the stage, the paradox that shouldn't exist. Oil should make you rich. Oil should give you power. Oil should stabilize your economy. But historically the opposite happens. Countries with enormous oil reserves, Nigeria, Venezuela, Iraq, Angola, Libya, should be success stories. Instead, many faces hyperinflation, military coups, civil wars, mass corruption, failing institutions, extreme inequality, crippling unemployment, currency collapse. You see the pattern. Oil money flows in. Stability flows out. But why? To understand this paradox, we need to travel back in time, before pipelines and tankers existed. To a moment when oil was not yet the king of global economies, but a strange, overlooked substance that no one cared about. Only then does the curse begin to reveal itself. When oil became power. Oil wasn't always the world's most important resource. For centuries nations fought for lands, bestrayed routes, gold, slaves, and later, coal. But everything changed in the mid-19th century. In 1859, when Edwin Drake drilled the first successful oil well in Pennsylvania, he didn't just ignite an industry. He rewrote global power. Suddenly oil became essential for industrial machinery, ships, factories, sheeting, lubricants. But the real turning point came with the internal combustion engine. Cars, planes, tanks, warships. Oil became the blood of modern civilization. From that moment on, any country with oil was no longer just another nation. It was a prize, a target, a future battleground. But the nations with oil didn't understand the danger yet. They thought they were blessed. That belief would cost them everything. The rise, black gold discovered, wealth unleashed. Oil discovery always begins the same way. A foreign company shows up. They promise development, jobs, and progress. They say the land is full of riches. Local leaders believe them. But behind the scenes, these deals are always one-sided. Example 1, Iran, 1901. A British speculator bribed the Shah with £20,000 and obtained a 60-year concession to all of Iran's oil, plus 16% royalties. Britain kept the rest. Example 2, Nigeria, 1937. British companies extracted oil while locals lived in extreme poverty. The Niger Delta became polluted, militarized, and exploited. Example 3, Venezuela, 1922. A single well, Barroso No. 2, blew out with such force that oil erupted for 9 days straight. Foreign firms rushed in. Locals received almost nothing. Everywhere the story is the same. Foreign powers extract the oil. Local elites sign terrible contracts. A flood of money enters the country. The economy shifts toward oil. Everything else dies. This is known as Dutch disease. The Dutch disease, the curse begins. The logic is simple and deadly. When oil money pours into a country, the currency becomes stronger. Imported goods become cheaper. Local industries, manufacturing, agriculture, can't compete. They collapse. Suddenly, the nation is dependent on one thing only. Oil becomes The source of all income, the source of all jobs, the source of all government spending, the source of all foreign exchange. And anything controlled by a single resource becomes extremely fragile. Oil dependence is not just an economic problem. It is political dynamite. Because when oil becomes the heart of a nation, everyone wants to control the heart. The breaking point, when oil turns toxic. Here's the hidden truth. Oil money doesn't build nations. It breaks them. Let's follow the chain reaction. 'Cause 1. Oil wealth creates weak governments. Countries that get sudden oil wealth stop taxing citizens, supporting local industries, encouraging entrepreneurship. Why? Because they don't need their people anymore. They have oil. This destroys accountability. If citizens aren't taxed, they can't demand transparency. If governments get money for free, they don't bother building strong institutions. The result? Corruption explodes, public services collapse, leaders cling to power, democracy fades. Oil creates governments that rule without citizens. Cost 2. Oil fuels corruption on a massive scale. When billions of dollars enter a weak political system, they get captured by elites. Oil revenue rarely reaches the population. Instead, it flows to political families, military generals, foreign corporations, offshore accounts, luxury projects. Example: Nigeria has earned over $1 trillion in oil revenue. Yet 40% of its population lives in poverty. Where did the money go? Into corruption. Into mismanagement. Into pipelines of stolen crude. This isn't a flaw of oil. It is the nature of oil wealth. Cost 3. Oil triggers violence and civil war. Oil fields become battlefields. Pipelines become targets. Rebel groups fight for control. Why? Because whoever controls the oil controls the country. Examples: Sudan split in two over oil-rich regions. Iraq saw ISIS take entire oil fields to fund their expansion. Libya collapsed when militias captured oil ports. Angola fought a 27-year civil war fueled entirely by oil revenue. Oil wealth turns political leaders into warlords, opposition groups into militias, regions into separatist movements. The curse deepens. Cause 4. Oil makes economies extremely fragile. When a country depends on one resource, a single price drop can destroy everything. Oil prices are volatile. They rise. They crash. They rise. They crash again. Every time they collapse, oil states face recessions, unemployment, budget deficits, debt crises, social unrest. This is what happened to Venezuela in 2014, Nigeria in 2016, Russia in 1998 and 2014, Saudi Arabia repeatedly, Iraq almost every decade. Oil is not stable wealth. Oil is unstable dependence. Fallout: nations drowning in their own wealth. Now we see the full picture. Oil didn't just fail to lift nations. It actively destroyed them. Let's examine the fallout country by country. Case Study 1. Venezuela. From riches to ruins. Venezuela was once the richest country in Latin America. It had the largest oil reserves in the world. But oil dependence led to nationalized industries, destroyed agriculture, collapsed manufacturing, hyperinflation, dictatorship, mass migration. The economy shrank by 80% in a decade. Millions fled. The currency became worthless. Oil didn't save Venezuela. Oil drowned it. Case Study 2. Nigeria, the giant crippled by crude. Nigeria earns billions from oil, yet imports almost everything, even fuel. Why? Because local refineries were allowed to collapse. Agriculture was abandoned. Manufacturing disappeared. Oil became the only engine. And when that engine sputters, the whole nation stalls. Today, Nigeria faces chronic fuel shortages, polluted rivers, militant groups, massive unemployment, political instability, corruption, scandals. Oil should have been a blessing. Instead, it became a trap. Case Study 3. Iraq. Oil and war forever intertwined. Iraq has some of the richest oil deposits on earth. But oil made it a target. It fueled the Iran-Iraq War, the 1991 Gulf War, the 2003 invasion, ISIS expansion, repeated insurgencies. Oil turned Iraq into the battleground of global powers. Even today, political factions fight over oil revenue. Corruption is rampant. Infrastructure is broken. Instability is permanent. Case study 4. Libya, oil plus weak state equals collapse. Gaddafi used oil wealth to create a massive surveillance state. No institutions. No democracy. No diversification. When the regime fell, the country fragmented. Militias grabbed oil ports. Warlords sold oil illegally. Foreign powers armed factions. Oil wasn't just a resource. It was the prize fueling endless conflict. Case study 5. Angola, war paid for by petrodollars. Angola's oil wealth didn't end its civil war. It financed it. Government forces used oil revenue. Rebels used diamonds. After the war, oil revenues still failed to improve living standards. Today, 54% of citizens lack clean water. 1 in 5 children die before age 5. Corruption is systemic. Poverty is widespread. Oil made Angola rich on paper. But the people remain poor. Failed fixes. Why solutions never work. Over the decades, the world has tried to solve the resource curse. They failed every time. Here's why. Fix 1. Nationalization. Countries seized control from foreign companies. They thought owning the oil would solve everything. It didn't. Because corruption simply moved from foreign companies to domestic elites. Fix 2. Diversification plans that never happen. Every oil nation promises to diversify. Almost none do. Why? Because oil is too profitable. Politicians prefer short-term cash over long-term stability. Diversification requires discipline. Oil wealth creates complacency. Fix 3. Sovereign wealth funds. This works in a few nations like Norway. But in most oil-rich states, the funds are mismanaged. Money disappears. Rules aren't followed. Governments raid them during crises. Without strong institutions, savings vanish. Fix 4. Foreign advisors and IMF programs. These programs always fail for the same reason. You cannot fix a system built on corruption without removing the people who benefit from that corruption. Fix 5. More oil revenue will fix everything. This is the final delusion. Oil countries believe rising prices will rescue them. But when prices rise, corruption increases, spending increases, debt increases, dependency increases. And when prices fall, the collapse is even worse. Oil is a trap disguised as wealth. Modern parallels. The curse is repeating itself today. You might think the world has learned its lesson. It hasn't. Because right now, today, the curse is accelerating. Let's look at the data. More than 50 oil-rich nations are sliding into crisis. According to multiple economic studies, over half of all resource-rich nations are currently in recession, politically unstable, heavily indebted, experiencing currency collapse. Oil dependence remains the biggest predictor of corruption, dictatorship, conflict, economic volatility. Not democracy. Not history. Not culture. Fossil fuel revenues are declining permanently. Global demand growth is slowing. Electric cars are rising. Renewables are cheaper. Investors are shifting away from oil. This means countries depending on oil are standing on a shrinking platform. The curse is about to get worse. New producers are walking straight into the trap. Countries like Guyana, Mozambique, Uganda, Suriname are discovering massive oil fields. Governments are celebrating. Investors are rushing in. Politicians are promising prosperity. But history gives a warning. The faster a country discovers oil, the faster its other industries die. The curse is preparing to strike again. The oil timeline that repeats every time. Discovery, excitement, foreign companies enter, money flows in, currency strengthens, local industries collapse, corruption erupts, political instability rises, oil prices fall, crisis hits, government collapses, country starts over in worse shape. This pattern is so consistent, you could mistake it for a natural law of economics. Why some nations survive while others drown? If oil is a curse, why are countries like Norway, Canada, and Qatar doing fine? What protects them? 3 things. 1. Strong institutions before oil discovery. Oil discovered after nations build solid institutions becomes a blessing. Oil discovered before institutions destroys them. 2. Transparency and accountability. Countries that publicly track oil revenue avoid corruption. Countries that keep it secret collapse. 3. Diversification from day one. The longer a nation waits to diversify, the more impossible it becomes. Oil creates a dependency that nations cannot escape. The final warning: the curse is evolving. Here's the chilling truth. The next victims of the resource curse won't just be developing nations. Global powers are also at risk. Countries like Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, even the United States in some regions face looming instability as the world transitions away from oil. If these nations fail to adapt, history shows exactly what will happen. Currency collapse, unemployment, political instability, rising extremism, fractured states. The curse doesn't care if you're rich or poor. It only cares whether you're dependent. Conclusion: 3 takeaways. Takeaway 1. Oil is not wealth. Oil is dependence. The more you rely on it, the weaker you become. Takeaway 2. Oil destroys institutions before it builds economies. Strong nations survive it. Weak nations collapse under it. Takeaway 3. The resource curse isn't a theory, it's a repeating pattern. And it is happening again right now. If history shows us that oil wealth destroys nations, and the world is slowly moving away from oil, what happens to the countries still clinging to it? Will they adapt in time? Or will they drown, just like the giants before them? The answer will shape the next century. If you want more deep dive documentaries into global economics, hidden financial patterns, and the forces shaping our world, subscribe to the channel. And if you found this video eye-opening, share it with someone who still believes oil is the ultimate path to prosperity. Because understanding the curse is the first step in breaking it.